Would you trust a recall fix if regulators opened an investigation after 36 owner complaints alleged engine failures after the remedy was completed? GM already recalled nearly 600,000 trucks and SUVs with the 6.2-liter L87 V8. Now, NHTSA is questioning the repair itself and separately examining vehicles outside the original recall. Here's what owners and buyers need to know. Let's get into it. The recall was supposed to settle this. The L87 was GM's premium V8, powerful, naturally aspirated, and installed in trucks and SUVs that can cost well over $70,000. That is why a recall involving possible internal engine failure immediately changed the ownership equation. According to GM's official filing, certain connecting rods and crankshafts may have manufacturing defects. Investigators identified sediment that could damage rod bearings, along with crankshafts that may have had incorrect dimensions or surface finish. If that damage progresses far enough, the engine can fail and the vehicle can lose propulsion. Imagine passing a semi, towing a camper, or driving your family on an interstate when the engine suddenly stops making power. That is why this became a safety recall, and the numbers behind it were enormous. GM identified more than 28,000 field complaints or incidents that were potentially related to L87 crankshaft, connecting rod, or bearing failure. More than 14,000 included allegations of lost propulsion. Those figures do not prove every complaint had the same cause, but they explain why the recall immediately changed the value of a clean-looking used truck. Because the question was no longer just, does it have the 6.2? The question became, what does the VIN say? Not every 6.2 got the same remedy. Here's the part many owners still misunderstand. The recall did not mean that every affected vehicle automatically received a new engine. Dealers were instructed to inspect the engine first. Depending on that inspection, one vehicle could receive an engine repair or replacement. Another vehicle could pass inspection and receive higher viscosity oil, a new oil filter, a different oil fill cap, and an owner's manual insert. Think about that. Two nearly identical Yukons could arrive for the same recall and leave with completely different outcomes. One owner may drive home with a replacement engine, the other may drive home with a different oil specification. That does not automatically mean the oil-based remedy was inadequate. It was the official remedy for vehicles that passed GM's inspection procedure. But it does mean used buyers now need more than a line saying the recall was completed. They need to know what was actually done. Was the engine replaced? Was it repaired? Did it pass inspection and receive the higher viscosity oil package? Is there a dated repair order showing the result? Because completed is no longer a complete answer. And this is where the story took a much more serious turn. The fix itself is now under review. In January 2026, NHTSA opened a recall query focused on engine failures reported after the recall remedy had already been completed. The agency said it had received 36 owner complaints alleging engine failure in recalled vehicles after the repair. In every one of those complaints, the recall remedy had been performed before the reported failure. Even more important, NHTSA said the complaints involved both remedy paths, the higher viscosity oil treatment and engine replacement. That does not prove that all 36 alleged failures were caused by an ineffective remedy. NHTSA reported no crashes, fires, injuries, or fatalities in that specific group of complaints. But it was enough for regulators to ask a direct question. Was the original recall remedy adequate? That question changes the buying calculation. Before this investigation, a completed repair could feel like the end of the story. Now an owner may reasonably ask whether the vehicle needs continued monitoring even after the recall has been closed. And a used buyer should ask something even more specific. Has this vehicle had any knocking, reduced power, unusual shifting, no start events, or engine work after the recall visit? A repair order tells you what the dealer did on one day. The service history tells you what happened afterward. If you own a recalled GM 6.2, tell us in the comments which remedy your vehicle received and whether the engine has been trouble-free since. The original recall may not be the full boundary. Now comes the second investigation, and this may be even more important for owners whose VIN currently shows no open recall. NHTSA received 1,157 reports of L87 engine bearing failures during its broader investigation. Of those, 173 involved vehicles outside the scope of the original recall. That led the agency to open an engineering analysis covering an estimated 286,051 vehicles outside the recalled population. These vehicles are not automatically recalled. That distinction matters. An investigation is not proof that every vehicle contains a defect, and it is not the same as a new recall. But NHTSA said it continued receiving a significant number of engine failure reports outside the original recall scope, and wanted to evaluate the severity and boundaries of the potential problem. So a buyer can check a VIN, see no open recall, and still be looking at a vehicle from a model and engine family under federal investigation. Does that mean you should immediately walk away from every L87 equipped GM truck or SUV from those years? No, but it means no open recall should no longer be the only question. Ask whether the model year and build date fall within the vehicle populations NHTSA is now investigating. Then look for previous engine replacement, bearing-related repairs, knocking complaints, sudden loss of power, or unexplained mechanical work. And never confuse the absence of an open recall with proof that the vehicle has never had a problem. Why a clean test drive may tell you very little. This is what makes the L87 difficult for used buyers. A truck can start quietly, idle smoothly, and drive perfectly during a 20-minute test drive. The interior can be spotless, the mileage can be low. The seller can have every option listed correctly. None of that tells you what the crankshaft or rod bearings will do 6 months later. GM's recall documents list possible warning signs such as knocking or banging, a check engine light, hesitation, high RPM, abnormal shifting, reduced propulsion, or a no-start condition. But those symptoms may not appear during a short drive. And even when the manufacturer pays for a covered repair, the owner may still face towing, dealer scheduling, rental car questions, parts delays, and weeks without the vehicle. That is why a test drive should be treated as only one part of the inspection. The most important question for the seller is simple. What remedy did this specific engine receive, and has it had any engine-related complaints since? Then ask to see the repair order. A vehicle history report may show that a recall was completed, but it may not explain whether the engine was replaced, repaired, or simply passed inspection and received the oil-based remedy. A premium badge does not make uncertainty disappear. It only makes the potential bill larger. Subscribe to Autopulse TV for recall stories explained without the rumors. Should you still buy a GM 6.2? The answer is not a simple yes or no. The L87 is still powerful, smooth, and desirable, and the current investigations do not prove that every engine is defective or that every completed remedy will fail. But buying one blindly no longer makes sense. The lowest risk example would have clear recall documentation, complete maintenance records, no engine-related complaints after the remedy, and an independent inspection that finds no warning signs. The highest risk example is the opposite: an open recall, missing paperwork, unexplained engine work, warning lights, suspicious noise, or a seller who wants you to trust the badge instead of the records. Would I buy an affected vehicle before the recall was completed? Not unless there were exceptional circumstances and a clear written plan from an authorized GM dealer. Would I automatically reject one with a completed recall? No, but I would want to know which remedy it received and whether anything happened afterward. And if the vehicle is outside the recall but belongs to a population now being investigated, I would treat that as an additional risk, not as proof that the engine is doomed. That is the key distinction. This is not a story about panicking over every 6.2-liter GM vehicle. It is a story about refusing to buy uncertainty at a premium price. What current owners should do. Current owners should confirm the VIN status and keep the repair order showing exactly which remedy was performed. Make sure future oil service follows the specification documented for the vehicle after the recall. Then pay attention to any new knocking, banging, reduced power, unusual RPM behavior, a check engine light, abnormal shifting, or a no-start condition. If the engine develops a new mechanical noise or loses power, document the mileage, save the warning messages, contact the dealer, and avoid continuing to drive a vehicle that may be experiencing internal damage. If the recall was completed and the engine later developed a problem, keep every document and report the failure to both GM and NHTSA. That paper trail matters because regulators are now reviewing both post-remedy complaints and vehicles outside the original recall boundary. The most dangerous assumption is not that every engine will fail. It is that a closed recall means there is nothing left to monitor. GM's original 6.2-liter recall was already serious. The new investigations make the story bigger. Regulators are reviewing alleged failures after the remedy and examining vehicles outside the original recall scope. The L87 is not an automatic no, but a closed recall is no longer enough by itself. Check the VIN, verify the remedy, and judge the vehicle by what happened afterward. If this video helped, subscribe to AutoPulse TV and share it with another GM truck or SUV owner.